Hello and welcome to Lesson 16 in Unit 3 of Code.org Computer Science Discoveries. And yesterday we worked on keyboard input, and today we are going to look at another way that users can interact with the computers, and that is with a mouse. Of course, on a Chromebook you may be using touch pads and so forth, same sort of kind of thing. So we are looking at some new code today. We've looked at key went down in the challenge level of lesson 15, and key went up is sort of the opposite of that. I would imagine it would be used very similarly. And then you see there's some mouse codes. Mouse didn't move, mouse down, mouse went up button. We all know that most mice, not sure there how to say that, but anyway, your mouse has different buttons on it. Our touchpad has different places that does different things. So it's going to be very interesting as we program today, because I do not have a mouse, and I know that most of you are not using one either. So we're going to work through this together. We're going to learn about if-else statements. Now, we've already been doing if conditionals, if statements. And so the difference is all that we've been doing is if this is true, we are going to have this happen. This different, maybe when we were doing the keyboard, if we push the right arrow down, then we will move, our sprite will move along the X property to the right, or in a positive way. So else adds in, well, if it's true, we're going to do this, but if it's not true, else, if you don't do this or else, this will happen. So it's sort of like if it's not true, there's going to be something else that will happen. We will work through this together. I will go ahead and tell you that I have not worked through this lesson previously. So you and I are going to look through it for the first time together. Read through the following program, paying special attention to the if-else block on line 10. After discussing the following questions with your partner, write down your predictions and run the code to see what the program does. Of course, you don't have a partner unless you happen to be working with a sibling or a parent. So we're just going to be thinking towards ourselves, and what will this program do when we press the space bar, and what will it do if we don't press the space bar? All right, specifically down here in line 10, here's our if, our conditional. If the space bar is pressed down, the scale of the balloon, we remember that's the size of it. Over here it says to increase 0.02. If the scale is, or if the space bar is not pressed down, it's going to decrease. Now this is confusing to me, because I do remember that scale of 1 is normal. Anything larger than 1 gets bigger and bigger. So if our scale starts out at 0.6, which is where we start out at, it's going to be increasing. I think that the balloon, we're going to see a balloon. It's going to get created. And if I press the space bar down, it will get bigger. If I let go of the space bar, it will get smaller, the scale of it. So when I press the space bar, the balloon will get bigger. Now in our previous lessons, if I didn't press the space bar, nothing would happen. In this case, when I don't press the space bar, I think the balloon will get smaller. So let's see if we're correct with that prediction. Aha, press the space bar. And let it get really small, press it, let it get really big. It's kind of fun. I could see something like this being used for making things look like they're closer and farther away. In my mind, that's what I imagine, that balloon is floating away. All right, we're going to move on. I just saw that it flipped over when it came. That was interesting. Okay, it must have gone negative. Okay, if-else statements. Now, I do not normally play these videos while I am doing this recording, so I'm going to pause it. I encourage you guys to watch this video independently. If I try to play it in this video, it would be annoying to watch. Felicia's lips would not move at the same pace as what they should be moving, and I can't stand to watch videos like that. I'm going to assume you guys feel the same way. So I'm going to pause my recording. I'm going to watch this video because I haven't seen it yet, and then we will move on. Let's see what Felicia has to say about the if-else statement. Okay, so I have just finished watching the video. It was 1 minute and 55 seconds. If you have not watched it, it was interesting, and she's basically going over how to do those if-else statements and why. And it doubles the power of your programming so that you can do more with less lines. You don't have to program, well, if this, and then if this, and if you can have an if-else, and that sort of takes care of programming things twice in 2 different ways. Alrighty, so I love her example, and you can see that on the screen even if you didn't watch the video. You want to be woken up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday so you can get ready for school, but Saturday and Sunday you want to sleep in. So that is a perfect example of an if-else statement. If it is a weekday, wake me up. If it is a Saturday or a Sunday, allow me to sleep in longer. Alrighty. We're going to move on and look at bubble number 4. And so far, we're in bubble number 4, and we haven't talked about a mouse yet. It was really, that first section is just learning how to do if-else statements. Alrighty, so we've got some gears that spin in one direction when we press the space bar. Now we want to let them go in the other direction when the space bar isn't pressed. All right. Well, if you did not watch the video, one of the things she stated was how to find that else. Now there is one over here that already has an if-else statement, but if we don't want to have to drag all of this stuff in and out, what I actually recommend, there is a plus sign here where we can add different new parameters, just like when we were doing things like creating sprites and stuff like that, where you can add new parameters. Down here we can do the same thing. So I'm going to click the plus, and it's going to add the option for an else. So if the space bar is pressed down, we're going to be rotating in one direction. Else means if that's not true, if it's false. So if it goes to check and the space bar is not being pressed down, the key is not being pressed down, then we want it to move in the opposite direction. So I'm going to basically do these. I'm going to take a shortcut. We can go in here to the sprites and do the rotation and all of this. But I think I know a shortcut. I'm going to go to text, and I am going to highlight these things, and I am going to go to Control C for copy, and Control plus V for paste. Now, I pasted the exact same thing, which would be not what we want, but if I change these signs, now they're going to do the, oops, that should be a minus, and this one should be a minus. Okay, so now we have what was a -1 is now a +1, and vice versa for the others. That was a much easier way than doing all that clicking and dragging and having to rewrite everything. So if you're watching this, hopefully you learned a little trick. Copy and paste is wonderful. There we go. So I am not pressing anything, hands-free. And when I push my space bar, it turns the gears the other way. When I let my space bar go, they're going back and forth and back and forth. Awesome. And that is an if-else statement. If I press the space bar down, it turns one way, else it goes the other way. Da-da-da! All right, moving into number 5. Same program, but with a small difference. Read the program carefully, especially line 13, to figure out how to control the gears. Run the program and test whether you were correct. Make the gears spin the opposite way when there is no input. So this time it's about the mouse. And so I'm wondering, will this work with my, very curious about this whole mouse thing. Since I do not have one, it is not letting me, ooh, wait, there I go. I found a sweet spot on my touchpad that I can hold down, and when I hold it down, things rotate. Okay. We want to make it spin the opposite way when there is no user input. So in other words, the user input in this case, the Boolean expression here is the mouse goes down. If the mouse goes down, that is the true, if that's happening. It does this, so we want to add in what happens if it's false and the mouse is not being messed with. You remember the trick that I showed you? Using the text? It's Control plus C to copy. And it is Control plus V to paste. And then all I have to change are a couple little pieces, 3 pieces actually, which is a whole lot easier than having to read, drag, and type everything. Paste. All right, so now you see no user input, things are happening. I push my mouse down, and it took me, just so you know, it did take me a minute with the touchpad to figure out where I needed to push and what I needed to do with that. If you happen to have a mouse, it'll be a lot easier probably to do this lesson. But if you don't have a mouse, your touchpad is your mouse. All right, great, finish. I'm very pleased. All right, bubble 6, mouse clicks. Here's a program that drops a balloon down the screen. Make the balloon go up and down according to whether the user is pressing the mouse. Add codes that checks whether the mouse is being pressed. Move the balloon up if the mouse is down, if the key is pressed down. Otherwise, move the balloon down. So it's kind of like we're going to push the mouse to sort of blow the balloon up. Let's see what that, right now, of course, it's not. Nothing's happening. Show blocks. All right, right now there is no conditionals. There's nothing on here that asks, is something true? But we can see that there's a comment. Let's see if I can move this out of the way. That is not it. All right. Come on. Try to move that out of the way. It doesn't want to wiggle. All right. If the mouse is down, move the balloon up. Otherwise, move it down. That requires some if-then statements. This is not an if-then statement. That is just commenting, telling us what to do and sort of giving us a hint of where to do it. Since there's not already an if statement here, I am going to go ahead and drag out the if-else statement. And this balloon y, the plus, let's see here. If we add to the y, this starts off with y low, we add, that means we're going down. So if we want it to move down, I'm actually going to put that down here. All right. If the mouse is down. So let's go to the world. That's where we're going to find our Boolean expressions. Mouse down. And it asks what button. I'll be honest, I am not sure which button we're wanting to program because I'm on a touchpad. I'm going to leave it like that for right now. Let's see what happens. But I will need to change the balloon.y property because that makes it go up. Remember, y goes up and down, x is side to side. So let's drag that in there. Call it balloon. Balloon.y is equal to balloon.y. And I forgot to put the math in there, so I'm going to switch over to text and do it this way. If we decrease our y, we go up. You can see that y is getting smaller. If we increase our y, we're going down. Let's try. See if I can figure out where to push this thing. Ah, there we go. That is working. I'm pushing on my touchpad in the same little sort of sweet spot I was working at before. When I push it down, push my mouse key down, you could actually see it light up on the screen. And when I do that, the balloon goes up. When I let go, the balloon goes down, which is what it's supposed to do. Excellent. Just so you can take a peek at it with the blocks. This is what that looks like. If the mouse down says left button, then balloon.y is equal to, now this is like saying the new location of y is equal to the previous location of y minus 1. So we are moving it up the screen when we minus it. Okay. Level 7. I'm having fun. I hope you are. Let's see. This program uses an if block to shake the blender when the mouse is on the left side of the screen. And it must be shaking we want to shake the mixer now. So you can see that the example has, depending on where you're at, and the blender's already shaking, but the mixer is not. We want to add an else to make the mixer shake. So looking at all of this, we've already created the variables. We already have the sprites on here, and they already have their animation set. That would be my alarm. So I don't have much longer, then we'll have to pause. So taking a peek at this kind of quickly here, we've got the background is light yellow. we have done a burly wood colored rectangle down here. That's what is the table. If the mouse is less than 200 for the X value, X is side to side, then this is what's going to happen. Blender X and blender Y are going to move around. So we're going to randomly move those around. So now we need an else statement, which means we are not on less than 200. If we're not less than 200, then we're more than 200. So this is easier perhaps than adding in another if statement being greater than 200. Blender. So I want to do let's see here. Go to sprites. I want to do the mixer X. Oops. And we want it to be, we're not really, we wanted to use a random number. We want the X value to be close to where it is now. So my mixer is currently at about, well, I can go right up here and look. It says 300, 300. So this is the point that it's measuring from. So 300, 300. So we're going to make it just a little bit varied from that. 295, 305. We're going to do the same thing with the Y property of the mixer, mixer.y. We're going to use the random number function so that every run of the draw loop will get a different value between 295 and 305. Let's see how that works. So I'm over here kind of looking at the blender and it's shaking. I'm over here looking at the mixer and it's shaking back and forth. How fun is that? All right, let's keep going. Almost time for me to go get my next class. I'm trying to decide if I have enough time. I'm going to be optimistic and try. Ladybug walk. We want the ladybug to move only when the mouse is near the bottom of the screen. When the mouse goes from the bottom, then it should not be walking. Add an if block to check whether the position of the mouse, which is world.mousey, is below a certain point. So there's nothing in here in this draw loop, so we're going to have to put some things in here. First off, if you remember right, there is one thing we always must put in the draw loop to begin with, and that is our background. If you are coming here to watch this lesson because you're getting lots of ladybugs, oops, that is because you forgot to do this part. This thing is being difficult. There we go. And I like to put, and most people who are coding put the background first. So we got the background. It's going to replace the ladybug every time. Let me run it. Actually, maybe not. Let me try something. Alrighty. If I do a white background, it's going to cover up the other animation. So we'll figure that out in a minute. Let's go ahead and do our if then, or if else, sorry. Alrighty, so if else, The world mouse Y controls up and down where the mouse is located from top to bottom. If the Y is located below a certain point, so that would be less than a certain point. Where did it go? Oh my, oops. This draw sprites thing should be below that. Okay. If, I don't know where the other piece of coding went. Let me try that again then. If it is less than, all right, let's try it with this. Maybe not with that. All right, we want it to be less than a certain point. I'm going to be checking. Well, I tell you what, it is time for me to go get my 6th graders. I'm going to have to look at this particular bubble a little longer. We'll come back to lesson 8 later. I'll probably make another video. This one is tough.